Get ready, get set, and hold on. It's going to be one hell of a ride. Welcome to the Mouth of Matuszak Show. And I'm your host, Paul-Gregory Matuszak, on this Tuesday, July 29th, 2014. Good morning! Hopefully your week got off to a great start yesterday, and you're able to get things kicked off and going forward and going great. Got the rest of the week to look forward to, so let's kind of get into it here. Yesterday, being a typical Monday, we had some slight technical difficulties trying to bring up a clip from Senator Ted Cruz with a couple of moments he had there on Meet the Press on Sunday, where he discussed what the real stonewalling is that's going on with Congress and how it's not what certain people are trying to tell you that it is. So, before we get into the ridiculousness, the ludicrousness, and the absurd, as well as the flat-out infuriating and frustrating going on, let's take a look back at where this frustration may be coming from.
My colleague Kelly O'Donnell talked to one of the Senate's most outspoken voices, Ted Cruz of Texas, Republican, about who is to blame for nothing getting done. Watch this.
There is only one member of the U.S. Senate that has control over the agenda, and that is the majority leader. I can't control the agenda on the Senate floor. The reason we have no votes on tax reform is because Harry Reid won't allow any votes on tax reform. The reason we have no votes on regulatory reform is because Harry Reid won't allow any votes on regulatory reform. The reason we don't even spend a minute talking about substantive issues to generate economic growth and jobs is because Harry Reid won't allow the votes. At the end of the day, the Senate used to be called the world's most deliberative body. We don't debate anything nowadays.
How about that? Just think about those final words of the clip as Senator Ted Cruz says, the Senate used to be known as the most deliberative body, a place where people would debate things and eventually, you come to the consensus of the things that you all agreed upon, both sides. Well, that's what would go into a bill, and the parts that nobody agreed upon, keep out. And that's the way things kind of got done, the way things were kept sane. But nowadays, there's no debate at all. Any attempt to bring up debate, bring up the discussion, talk about actually doing things to fix things, or even generate new legislation, or new regulations. God forbid, we have enough of those as it is. But anyway, those aren't even brought up. It's Harry Reid saying, my way or the highway, you will vote for our bill, or we're not going to vote. And of course, the rhetoric coming from certain politicians that kind of are a little bit, in other words, a lot, left of center, is that it's those dang conservatives in the House of Representatives who aren't letting anything happen. Not true. The House of Representatives has passed several bills, has passed several budget attempts, has passed many things. They've even put up reform bills, and when they hit the Senate, they're not even brought forward for debate, not even put on the agenda. So, based on the insight of the junior senator from that insignificant little speck of dust down in south central United States, the one little itty-bitty place that most people won't even consider a state because it's so small, and of course I'm referring to the Republic of Texas. Anyway, thanks to the insight coming from Senator Cruz, and I'm wondering what the other senator from Texas might say on this, or some of the other more conservative senators, Mike Lee, perhaps from Utah, or Marco Rubio from Florida. I wonder if they kind of agree with Ted here. But it appears that it's not those nasty conservatives who are keeping things from happening. The single point of failure seems to be Mr. Dingy, Dirty Harry Reid. Wow. So, based on that, my question is this, and it goes to Mr. Reid. When are you going to do your job? When are you going to allow these things up to discussion? The only way anything is going to change or not change or get enacted or not get enacted or get pared down or get repealed or whatever anybody desires is if it comes up for debate in the first place. And there's no debate if the issues aren't raised, if the bills are not talked about, if they're not voted upon. Heck, even if they're brought up and they go and they're filibustered for 30-something days by constant speeches from conservatives and never get a chance to go to a vote. Or heck, if one was brought up today, it only gets through the 31st until they hit until Congress has to take a break until September 8th or so. So just trying to bring something up for these last couple of days, he's afraid that it's going to be that the bill will be talked to death. That's all fine and dandy. At least it's being talked about. When the only discussion going on in the Senate is when they bring up something completely unrelated, and Senator Rand Paul takes the floor for several hours to discuss an issue that nobody wants to talk about, and he brings the awareness to it by talking and talking and talking and talking until he physically cannot stand any more. And then Ted Cruz does the same thing on a different topic, talking about it, talking about it, and talking about it, and talking about it, until, well, I won't say he was physically removed, because he could have kept going longer, but he was a gentleman and said, okay, the time allotted for the subject that I interrupted with my filibuster has expired, and there's a new topic coming up, and it's a new legislative day, so I'm going to allow that legislative day to go on schedule, being the gentleman that he is. But that's the only way that issues were brought up and brought to the news and discussed, is because of that, in quotes, grandstanding. Because otherwise, these topics aren't being discussed by the Senate where they should be. Interesting. So, Harry Reid, when are you going to let the Senate do its job? Why are you blocking the Senate from working? So it's not those nasty conservatives in the House, or even the nasty conservatives in the Senate. It's you, Mr. Reid. So why are you keeping people out of work? I guess maybe you like the idea of a strike from the union thug perspectives, because I don't like what they want to propose, and I don't want to talk about what they want to talk about, because it's not in lockstep with the Lord and Master, Barack Obama. We're not going to talk about it. I'm not going to let it come up. I'm not going to let you do your jobs. Well, that's the wrong answer. But, as I posited in my article on this clip over in BuzzPo, go ahead over to BuzzPo and read the article. But I'm going to add a little bit more food to thought, and I kind of expound on it there. Something for you to think about. Leave your 2 cents down at the bottom of the article and let me know what you think. Or you can leave it over on my blog, or go to the podcast later on if you're listening to this live, and leave it in the comments section underneath the YouTube. But my next thought posited is, where is Joe Biden? Joey, where are you? What's your job? I checked the Constitution last I looked at it, which was a long time ago. It was a whole yesterday, because I wanted to double check before I said something dumb. Unlike other people, I actually double check my stuff before I open my mouth or set fingers to keyboard. And yes, the Vice President's primary job is actually to preside over the Senate, to handle those agendas, to sit there with the gavel and make sure that the rules are followed, and that everybody is being as cordial and professional as possible. In the past, there have been issues where cordial and professional involve beating each other with sticks and canes. Luckily, we're not at that point anymore in our history. That was kind of a while ago. But Joe Biden, that's what you're supposed to be doing. The Senate Majority Leader is not supposed to be deciding what gets discussed and what doesn't. It's supposed to be the Vice President. Of course, then again, maybe the Vice President is doing just that by not doing his job and letting the Senate Majority Leader decide. So maybe that is his decision. We're not going to talk about it unless the Senate Majority Leader says so. That's kind of thug tactics too, you know. Yeah, so when you think about it, maybe, just maybe, the stonewalling that's going on that Obama blames Congress for is actually an executive action by his assistant there, you know, his mini-me, his favorite union thug, Mr. Joey Biden, in conjunction, of course, with Harry Reid. Maybe. But I go a little bit more about the background of that and those thoughts, kind of written out a little bit more articulately, I guess, is a way to put it, over at the BuzzPro article. So go ahead and read that over and think about it, hash it over. Go ahead and review your own copy of your Constitution and, give me your thoughts. I don't know, I might be looking in the wrong direction here. But interesting things. Like I said, at the beginning of the show, hold on, this is going to be a wild ride. We got some wild things to discuss. Yesterday, in case you missed it, I did discuss the march going on in Austin and the kind of counter march there that moms demand anything from being logical, or whatever the heck the name of the group is. Every town has a mom who demands tyranny, or whatever their name is today. Shannon Watts' organization. She had some of her members there in Austin walking around topless, showing off the ladies, as it would be. And somehow that was supposed to be some kind of a counter-protest to Texans open carrying their rifles because they're not allowed to open carry their pistols. But little note on that, coming from BuzzPro writer Eric Reid, who is very much involved in gun rights. In fact, he's the president of Gun Rights Across America, I think is the name of the organization. We go over to BuzzPro and read his stuff, especially if you're involved in the Second Amendment debate, regardless of which side of it you're on, because it's always good to understand it coming from your opponent if you're pro-gun control. But anyway, a little discussion, a little quips coming from Eric Reid, discussing other things among some of the writers over at BuzzPro yesterday and this morning. Found out that the 2015 legislative session, which is the next time the legislature meets here in Texas, it's a little insignificant spot of dust named Texas, but it's already on the agenda. It's one of the primary, other than, of course, the budget, which is always a big thing. It's one of the first things that they open debate with and open the bills on, and usually one of the last things finally passed. because within Texas, it's very important. The budget is a big thing, and it must balance. In fact, looking back at the past couple of years, more than balancing, at the end of the day, they really want a surplus because they can do a couple of things with that surplus. So that's, of course, a big debate issue in both of the houses of the Texas legislature. But another big topic for discussion is going to be how they decide they want to legalize the open carry of pistols. It's not so much, are we going to legalize it? According to what Eric is kind of guessing here, there's insight in his contacts. It's more along the lines of, how are they going to pass it? Is it going to be by license? Is it only going to be concealed carry license holders who will be allowed to open carry as well? Or will it be a completely separate license? Or if you have a CHL, are you going to be allowed to open carry? But if you don't have a CHL, maybe you can also get an open carry license. You just can't carry concealed, with maybe some slight differences in the qualifications, etc. So, a lot to discuss there. So, evidently, that's high on the agenda for Texas, who may be the 46th state to allow open carry, because currently they do not. So for those who think that Texas is a very big pro-gun state, if you look at the laws down here, that's not exactly an accurate statement. You want a pro-gun state? Go to one of the states that currently has some version of constitutional carry. Of course, I refer to Arizona, Alaska, and I think it's New Hampshire is another one, and other ones are expanding as well. For those who don't know what constitutional carry is, it's a very simple concept. You open up your copy of the Constitution, you flip through, and you flip through the main big body of it for the main 7 articles, and then you get to this little section that's called amendments, and this is where they started making changes to the base document. And the first 10 changes, actually there were 11, but one got stricken down. But the first 10 changes that were added before the Constitution was even ratified, because some smart people said, just because this document says what the government is allowed to do, there's not enough verbiage in here that says they can't do these things that we all know today to be common sense, but maybe 50 years from now, they won't. Or 10 years from now, even. So, the idea was, we'll put these items in here and just spell it out for those that just don't get it or are going to look for a loophole and try to take away these rights that we think that everybody should have. I mean, heck, we wrote this big, long document when we broke from England about it. And heck, the whole war started over one or two of these things in the first place. So they put it in writing and said, look, these are some things that we're going to flat out say the government can't do, because we want to protect these natural individual rights that everybody is born with. So they wrote them down, and it ended up being 10 amendments called the Bill of Rights. And these rights were not granted to the citizens by the government. No. Don't let anybody try to tell you that the Bill of Rights grants you your rights. No, what it does, it says we recognize that you have these rights, you're born with these rights, and the government has no right, no authority to take them away. They can't do anything about it. They cannot infringe upon them. They cannot chip away at them. They cannot reduce them one iota. So, of course, you have the First Amendment, which we're not even going to get into right now, but I'm expressing it right now, talking to y'all. We'll go past the first one, which, of course, talks about religion and also being able to tell the truth and investigate the government. And we'll discuss that amendment a little bit later on in the show. But go on down to the second one and read it. And people try to interpret it all these different ways. But the bottom line is that it says the rights to keep, in other words, own,